I stared intently at my phone screen, my heartbeat slowing as I read the bank notification. Your account is currently overdrawn. Please contact us immediately to verify recent transactions. My eyes scanned the numbers quickly and a chill ran down my spine. Over $12,000 in the negative? That was impossible. I had always been careful with my finances, keeping a tight grip on every expense. I had never let my account reach an alert level like this. Before I could call the bank, my phone buzzed with an incoming call from an unknown number. I hesitated but answered anyway. A female voice rang out, filled with frustration. It's Rebecca. Do you know what's going on? Caleb promised to send me the rent money, but now the bank says his account is frozen. What the hell is happening? I closed my eyes for a few seconds, trying to stay calm. Rebecca, Caleb's sister. We were never close, but I knew she relied on Caleb for financial support. What had he done? Hold on, I said, keeping my voice steady. What did you just say? Caleb sent you the rent money? No, she nearly yelled. He promised he would, but this morning when I tried to withdraw it, the bank said his account was frozen. I don't know what to do now. I tightened my grip on the phone. Caleb took money from my account to help his sister? Without telling me? Without a single explanation? I was the primary earner in this household. I was the one who managed our finances, and yet he thought he could go behind my back? I took a deep breath, forcing myself not to react too soon. Rebecca, let me check on it. I'll call you back. I hung up before she could say anything else. My fingers moved swiftly across the screen as I opened the banking app. A flood of transactions appeared before me. Some I recognized, like utility bills and credit card payments, but there were far too many withdrawals from locations I had never been to. Thousands of dollars had vanished, little by little, over the past 3 months. I inhaled deeply. I saw this coming, didn't I? 3 months ago, Caleb had developed an unusual interest in our finances. The man who had spent our entire marriage leaving money matters to me suddenly wanted to know about our savings accounts, asked about retirement plans, and insisted I explain numbers he had never cared about before. At first I thought he was trying to change, to be more responsible, but then other strange things started happening. Long phone calls behind the closed door of his office, but whenever I walked in, he would immediately shut his laptop. He started coming home late, claiming he had urgent work to handle, yet there was never any real evidence of these so-called projects. One evening I caught him transferring money from our account into an unfamiliar account. When I asked him about it, he only smirked. You always have to control everything. Why can't you just trust me for once? At that moment I wanted to believe him. But I wasn't stupid. I had worked as a forensic accountant for over 10 years, and I knew the signs of deception when I saw them. So I silently began tracking every transaction. I took screenshots, downloaded bank statements, and noted every suspicious expense. I met with a lawyer, preparing for the worst-case scenario. And now the worst-case scenario had arrived. I set my phone down on the table, forcing myself to suppress the anger rising in my chest. Caleb thought he could outsmart me. He thought I wouldn't notice the signs, wouldn't realize he was trying to drain my money before disappearing. But he forgot one important thing. I am not an easy woman to deceive. I specialize in hunting down people like him. And now the game had just begun. I was sitting in my living room when my phone screen lit up with a message from an unknown number. But I didn't need to guess. I knew exactly who it was. Leah, I need to talk to you, please, just one last time. I know I messed up, but I can explain. Meet me at Blue Haven Cafe at 3 p.m. I'm begging you. I stared at the message, a small smirk forming on my lips. So, his game wasn't over yet. Caleb still thought he could manipulate me one last time, that I was still foolish enough to fall for it. I forwarded the message to FBI agent Sarah Montgomery and received an almost immediate response. Good, we'll be there, just keep him there long enough. I stood up, double-checking the documents in my bag, making sure everything was in place. If Caleb wanted to play his final hand, I was more than happy to help him. Before he realized he had already lost. Blue Haven Cafe sat at the corner of a quiet street, a place Caleb and I had visited a few times when we first started dating. But today there was no warmth of old memories, only the quiet anticipation of a man about to be exposed. I stepped inside, scanning the room. Caleb was already there, seated in a secluded corner, his eyes darting toward me as I approached. He looked different, His hair was disheveled, dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his wrinkled shirt hung loosely on his frame. The look of a desperate man. "Leah," he smiled faintly, but I saw a flicker of hope in his eyes as I pulled out my chair and sat down. I kept my voice soft, hiding the anger simmering beneath the surface. "What do you want to say?" Caleb sighed, putting on an air of remorse. "I know I messed up, but I can fix this. I just need a little time, a little money to start over." "Same old trick." I tilted my head, pretending to hesitate. "So you need money?" He seized the opportunity immediately, "just a small amount from our emergency fund." "You know I never meant any harm, Leah. I just made a mistake." Slowly, I placed my handbag on the table and pulled out a brown envelope. "Then, maybe you can explain this to me?" I slid the envelope across to him. Caleb frowned, hesitating before opening it. Inside were copies of bank transactions, screenshots of his emails with other women, and lists of funds he had embezzled. I watched as his jaw clenched while he flipped through the pages. "Leah," he swallowed hard, "where did you get this?" I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms. "Did you really think you could keep this from me forever? I know everything, Caleb. I know about Rachel Carter. I know about Arizona. I know you're not just a con artist, but you're running a financial fraud network." Caleb froze for a moment, but within seconds he regained his composure. He forced a smile. "Leah, you're misunderstanding." "Oh, really?" I raised an eyebrow. "Then why is your account frozen? Why has the FBI opened an investigation on you?" I saw a bead of sweat roll down his temple. He was still trying to maintain control, but I had dealt with enough fraudsters to recognize when someone was panicking. "You can't do this to me, Leah," he said in a lower voice, attempting to sound vulnerable. "I love you. We can work this out." I let out a soft laugh. "You love me, really? Is that why you drained my bank accounts and planned to disappear?" He opened his mouth to respond, but before he could speak, a firm voice rang out behind me. "Caleb Foster, stand up and put your hands where we can see them." His face went pale as two FBI agents approached, their guns concealed under their jackets. I picked up my handbag, stood up, and looked him straight in the eye. "The game is over, Caleb." He remained frozen, as if hoping he could still turn the situation around, but as Agent Montgomery stepped forward, he realized there was no way out. Suddenly he sprang to his feet, trying to dash toward the door. But within seconds, the agents tackled him, slamming him onto the table. "I'm innocent," Caleb shouted, but no one in the cafe paid him any attention. I watched as they cuffed him, my expression calm, perhaps clearer than ever. "Oh, and one more thing, Caleb," I said, my voice soft but sharp. "Rebecca isn't your sister. She's your accomplice. And now she's been arrested too." I saw his eyes widen. He hadn't expected that. Agent Montgomery hauled him to his feet while another agent escorted him out of the cafe. I watched the scene unfold, a deep sense of satisfaction settling in. Caleb thought he had controlled everything, but he never realized that from the very beginning I was the one pulling the strings. The trial of Caleb Foster took place on a cold February morning. I sat in the front row of the courtroom, watching the man who had once been my husband enter, his hands cuffed, clad in an orange prison jumpsuit. There was no trace left of the charming, polished man I once knew. He looked thinner, his eyes sunken, but the only thing I noticed was the burning rage in his gaze when he saw me. He knew I was the one who did this to him, and I had no regrets. The judge entered and the trial began. The prosecutor stood and summarized Caleb's charges: financial fraud, identity theft, marriage fraud, and witness intimidation. The evidence had been laid out over the past few months, and today it was time for his victims to speak. Rachel Carter was the first to rise. I glanced at her, her blonde hair tied back, her eyes steady despite a slight tremor in her hands. "I met Caleb Foster 3 years ago," she said, her voice clear. "He made me believe he was a good man, someone I could trust. I loved him, I trusted him, until he took every penny I had and disappeared, leaving me drowning in debt without a single explanation." Caleb didn't look at her, but I saw his shoulders stiffen. Rachel continued, this time locking eyes with him. "But I didn't break. And thanks to Leah, thanks to all the women he tried to destroy, I stand here today to claim justice." One by one, the other victims of Caleb stepped forward and told their stories. Stories that followed the same pattern. A charming, seemingly successful man who sought out intelligent, independent women, gained their trust, then drained their finances before vanishing without a trace. When it was my turn, I stood up and walked to the podium. Caleb Foster thought he was smarter than all of us, I said, my voice unwavering. He thought he could outmaneuver me, but he forgot one thing. I am a forensic accountant. My job is to catch con artists like him. I locked eyes with him, showing not a trace of fear. And today I stand here to make sure he never gets the chance to do this to anyone else again. He glared at me, but I only smiled. He could hate me as much as he wanted, but he couldn't change the reality. He had lost. After all the evidence had been presented and the victims had shared their stories, the judge finally delivered the verdict. Caleb Foster, this court finds you guilty of financial fraud, identity theft, and witness intimidation. For these charges, you are sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. A collective sigh of relief swept through the courtroom. Caleb slumped into his chair, and for the first time since the trial began, he truly looked afraid. After the trial, I stepped outside the courthouse, feeling the sun warm my face. For the first time in months, I felt a genuine sense of relief. Rachel and I stood together, watching the transport van drive away with Caleb inside. "So it's over," she said, but we both knew this was just the beginning. Not long after, Special Agent Sarah Montgomery approached me. "Leah, you did an incredible job, but I have a proposal for you." I raised an eyebrow. "We need people like you. People who understand the minds of financial con artists. The FBI is expanding a special unit dedicated to cases like this, and we want you on board." I looked at her, surprised. But then, it made perfect sense. Maybe this was exactly where I was meant to be. "If I say yes," I asked, "what would I be doing?" Sarah gave me a knowing smile. "Helping us hunt down more Calebs out there?" I turned to Rachel and she nodded. "I'm in too," she said. And just like that, we went from being victims to becoming the ones who hunted the predators. 6 months later, I stood before a group of women at a financial fraud prevention conference. On the screen behind me, bold letters read, "Justice for the deceived." "People like Caleb Foster don't use guns or knives to rob you," I told the audience. "They use trust. They manipulate your emotions, but they always leave a trail. And if you know how to find it, you can turn the tables on them." Rachel, now a key part of the financial fraud victims support group we had founded, stood beside me, listening intently. A woman in the audience raised her hand. "I lost all my savings. I thought I'd never get it back. Is there any way?" I smiled. "Yes," I said. "We traced one of Caleb's hidden accounts, and thanks to the data he left behind, we helped a victim in Vancouver recover every dollar she lost." The woman's eyes widened. "So, there's still hope?" Rachel stepped forward, taking the microphone. "There's always hope," she said. I looked around the room, seeing the flickers of determination in their eyes. Caleb Foster thought he had destroyed me, but in reality he had given me a new purpose. He had turned me into someone that people like him should fear. I placed my pen against the paper, scanning the words one last time. Petition for name change. My new name, or rather my old name, stood out clearly on the document. Leah Carter. No longer Leah Foster, no longer tied to the man who had betrayed me. Caleb Foster was nothing more than a prisoner in an orange jumpsuit, locked away for the next 25 years. I was no longer the woman he deceived. I was Leah Carter, free, stronger than ever. As I stepped out of the government building, I took a deep breath. The past was behind me, the future was mine to own. 6 months later. The large screen behind me displayed a chart of financial fraud cases over the past year. Staggering numbers of victims exploited, millions of dollars stolen. I looked out at the packed auditorium, where FBI agents, attorneys, and financial fraud survivors listened attentively. "I once believed I would never fall for someone like Caleb Foster," I said firmly. "I'm a forensic accountant. I understand how con artists operate. But what I failed to realize is that they don't just target your bank accounts. They target your emotions. They build trust, turn you into an ally before turning you into a victim." In the crowd, I saw Rachel nod in agreement. She had been one of the first to join my new organization, Justice for the Deceived. "But we are not victims forever," I continued. "We can fight back. We can learn to recognize the warning signs, protect our assets, and most importantly, we can help others avoid the same traps." A round of applause erupted as I finished my speech. But to me, these words weren't just part of a presentation. This was my mission. In the months following Caleb's trial, my team helped dismantle 3 major romance fraud rings targeting middle-aged women. We helped a woman in Texas recover $100,000 after she was tricked into investing in a fake company by a man posing as a businessman. A man in Florida, who believed he was in love with a successful businesswoman, nearly transferred his entire retirement savings to a scammer until we intervened just in time. But the case that moved me the most was that of a woman in Vancouver. She had lost everything after falling for a scammer who used the same tactics Caleb had. When I first emailed her, she had lost all hope. But through our collaboration with the FBI and financial institutions, we tracked the fraudulent account used by the scammer and recovered nearly all of her stolen money. I will never forget the moment she called me, her voice trembling with emotion. "Thank you, Leah, thank you for not letting him win." I smiled, knowing that I was exactly where I needed to be. That night, I stood on the balcony of my new apartment looking out over the bustling streets of Milwaukee. I had lost so much because of Caleb. At one point I thought he had destroyed me. But no, he had only made me stronger. Now, I no longer lived in pain or resentment. I didn't need to destroy him to get revenge. My revenge was living a better life, and ensuring he would be the last con artist to ever see me as an easy target. Leah Carter's story is not just one of calculated revenge, it's a testament to resilience and intelligence. In reality, financial and romance scammers continue to prey on unsuspecting victims, but this story serves as a reminder that no one is untouchable, not even the con artists themselves. Leah didn't just fight for justice, she turned her pain into a purpose, helping others avoid the same traps. The greatest revenge isn't ruining those who betrayed you, it's rebuilding your life stronger than ever. What do you think about Leah Carter's story? If you were in her situation, how would you have handled it? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to follow the channel for more compelling stories about life, family, and justice.